Hi everybody, it's Kate Quinn from Fabricated Quilts. I'm ready to quilt today. How about you? Are you ready to have fun? So today the start of our show is a unique set of templates. Honey, can you look on, I think I left the paper on the ironing board right there. It says Yin and Yang on the cover. I just want to show them what the picture looks like. It's a paper with on the ironing board.
It's not on the ironing board?
Nope.
There's templates there.
Oh, is that it right there? On the back of that? Okay, well, we're going to do without it. I can't find it. Okay, I got the dits going on.
Small piece of paper?
It looks like one of these, but it has circles on it. Okay, honey to the rescue. Hi, Linda from Denmark. Hi, Linda Green from Stormy, Houston. Hi, Linda Evers. It's the Linda Show. Linda and Linda and Linda. Well, that's okay. My best friend's name was Linda, so happy to have you guys here. And hi, Bonnie, and hi, Sandy. So, okay, we got a good amount of people that have showed up for the show, so let's get playing. Let me put my template up real quick, and I'll show you what we're going to start out with. Babe, I think I see it. It's right there. I just realized that is it right there. Yeah, that piece of paper. Oh, yay. I told you, honey, to the rescue. This is the template that we're going to use today. And there are some really important things that I want to share with you as you're getting going, maybe using it. Obviously, it is a circle, okay? So we know that right off of the bat. That's pretty simple visually. What is not so obvious is that these are not symmetrical on these inner pieces. And in this right here, she's only showing you one piece of the little back-to-back curve that goes in there, but there's actually two. So let me open it up a little bit and show you what you have the potential to make with this right now. You're going to have sort of a little tiny back-to-back curve on it, and then you're going to have a longer arc with a little tiny curve on the bottom. And these two sides of this curve are not the same, and that's really important for you to realize. So you'll see that I'll probably mess up, because that does happen. Directionality is very important with this. So I want to make sure that you know that this side of a curve and this other side are not the same. So let me just show them to you real quick. I'll just pick up one of the bigger ones. So this is the 3-inch circle. So you get a circle like this, and there's a little pass through right there so that the thread can pass through there. You're going to have to lift up your foot sometimes and bring the new position, scooting this over and locking this into the new position. And this one doesn't have an end anchor line. I think it's weird because some of them do, so I don't know if mine is just an older iteration that hasn't been corrected. But this line essentially should go all the way across. So this side of this arc right here is pretty much a back-to-back curve, really similar to a back-to-back curve. It's not 100% perfect, but then if you'll notice this side, this is way longer. This is almost, 3/4, almost 7/8 of the rest of the curve. So these two are not interchangeable. They are different. And that'll be the first thing that we're going to share, just making the design in a straight line. Okay? All right, so let's get some fabric up here and we'll get stitching. I have such a pretty fabric today, you guys, and I am using Metler thread, poly sheen variegated thread. Oh, so pretty. It's one of my favorites. I'll even tell you the number right now. The number is 9914, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Here, I'll pull it out a little bit so you can see it. Woohoo! It's very vibrant, so pretty, and hopefully you'll be able to see it really well. And in the bottom, I have just a green, kind of the neon green like this, variegated in the bottom. Okay. This space right here is 8 inches approximately, should be pretty much. I measured it out. Barbara O'Neill, this is the Yin and Yang Template set by Westalee Design. Yin and Yang collection. Stepping out, I don't know what that means, but it's on there. Anyway, the circles will be these different sizes. There's 5 pieces. 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3 inches. So that's the circle size. There are 5 pieces. Let me just grab one more just for comparison. So this is the little yin and yang, right? This is the baby. This is the 1 inch. So the circle itself is 1 inch, and then this curve fits in that 1 inch space, right? So you've got 2 different wavies that are 1 inch wide right here. And then the next one, this is the 1.5. So you can see just space-wise. And now this curve will fit right in between here. And you have 2 different wavy lines that fit in the middle there. And then, of course, we have 2, 2.5, and 3. And so just right now, we were just talking about this space is 8 inches. So what I thought I would do is I'm just going to mark the center right here. This is 2.5 inches wide, so I could actually fit 2 different designs in here. I'm going to mark the center line right here, and we'll put that 2-inch space to fill up this little border channel right here. So let's mark it off. So if it's 2 inches, my center line should be right at 1, but this right here is not 2 inches right there. That is 2.5. So 1.25 is going to give us our middle. Make sure I'm all lined up. And we'll just put a center mark in there. Yes, I could have done this before, but then you wouldn't be able to see it, right? So we're explaining. Does that look even? Let's make sure. Kind of. It's not perfect. Oh well, we're going with it. This side looks a little smaller, that side looks a little bigger, but it's good enough. Good enough for us. Okay, let me find my size. I need the 2-inch size. Okay, so just like I told you, for some reason, 2 of mine don't have this line all the way, and on one of mine I actually made the line. I'll show you. On this one, I just added it in with my ruler because I felt like we needed it. So hopefully yours are all going to come like that. I'll check with my Sew Steady partners and see, but I bet they all should be like this. I'm betting. So since we're saying that this is 8, we can pretty much just start our circle right from the center position. And what I can show you is 2 different ways that we can work with this template to give you the simplest solution as far as movement. The first one I'm going to do is just make the whole shape. Oh, darn it, looks like my bobbin's kind of short. Okay, so I'm just going to put it right in the corner of that space. So if I knew that I had 2 inches, then I would use this one. If I knew I had multiples of 5, I could use the 2.5 because that would fit in there. If I had multiples of 3, I could use the 3-inch circle. If I had a 1, I could use the 1-inch circle. So you know that the distance is easily measured by the size of the circle. Okay, so I'm also going to shout out to my daughter who kindly helped me put all these stable tapes on this morning. She's like, Mom, what do I do? Can you give me a sample? Yes, here you go. What side do they go on? Clearly I've not trained her yet, but she did a good job. All right, enough talking. Let's get sewing. Get that presser foot down. What is going on here? He doesn't want to behave. Lower the presser foot. Okay, there we go. Good. I'm glad my machine's so smart. Always when we are making the circles, we need to go around 1.5 times if we want to get back to this position. So if I sew, I'll have to come around. Notice that there's a little cutout right there. We'll kind of get you in maybe a little bit up top so you can see better. So that little cutaway, what is great about it is it's so small that there's no way the foot's even going to notice it. So what that allows us to do is just sew right past it. You can see it's nice and smooth right there. Doesn't have any weird wobble or anything like that. And we'll just come back to the center position. And this is marked, right by the center line. In order to put this on it now, obviously my foot is in the way, okay? So we have to raise up the foot. Well, with this machine, if I raise up the foot, it's not going to be able to go enough that I could get the needle to pass through. I have to bring the needle up, and then I can lift this up. And what I want to do is just very slowly and gently pass the needle through there. ooh, I did it the wrong way. I need to move the ruler, not the fabric. I want the fabric to stay in place. So I'm going to get my needle seated right where I left off, and now I'm in this position. Well, obviously, the circle's not on this side, right? But I find that if you just seat this quickly, then you could just turn this the other way. Now, we were just talking about directionality, so let's talk about this and show you what I mean by that. Let's cut these threads. We already tacked them because we sewed right over them, so they are not going to come out. And let me show you. Let's get lined back up. So there's my center line right there. There is some space on this side, and maybe I'll just kind of work a little bit so I have my 1/4 inch right there. If you need that precision, if you want to be really perfect, you can just stick your spacing gauge right on there. Mine looks perfect, like he's going to fit right in there. If I sew on this top, this is a very long arc, and then it's just going to have a little tiny curve right here at the bottom. If I sew on this side, this is much deeper, and these two are almost identical, but not 100%, right? I know, I keep having to raise and lower my presser foot because I'm showing things. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll sew this one around that curve. We're going to get right into our stop point here. And now I'm just going to sew backwards right along that. And I'm just going to slowly make sure I can get right into the middle. Like if this might stitch outside of that because I positioned it poorly, I'm not going to let it. I'm going to correct that. So let's just go ahead, and again, I'm going to raise up my needle so I can scoot over to the next circle. So I'm going to lift up the foot a little bit, but remember, I'm moving the ruler and not the fabric because I want the needle to stay right in place, right? So then let's put the foot down. We'll make sure the needle stayed right in place, and then I can just do my next circle. So let's scoot this over. So there you can see that cute little design. This is almost half of the circle. I mean, this back to back should be close to symmetrical, but I saw when I sewed it out, it's not exactly 100%. But this side is much longer on one side and much narrower on the other side. So I could even take this and I could put this arc on this other side. So we won't do that. We'll do that on another design. But right now, I just want to show you the basic design. So let's put another circle in. This line can accommodate 4 of these 2-inch circles. So again, I'm going to sew all the way around, and I can stop there and I can go 1, 2, but that wouldn't get me where I wanted. So I'm going to sew all the way to this side again, 1.5 times around. The yin and yang is only 2 iterations, right? If you just sew it on both sides. Let me show you what I mean. So if I was stopping here and I did the S curve, I would end here. And if I did the other side of it, I would end there. But then I'd still have to get back to this position, right, to do the next circle. So I like the 1.5 times around. And you can go on either side. You can go on the right side or the left side, or you could alternate your double stitching. And then once again, this is such a short transition right here. So all I want you to do is lift up your needle and your foot and just raise your presser foot a little bit, and then I'm just going to scoot this over until I can get the foot down in there. That way the fabric is not moving around. The needle should be able to position really smoothly right where I left off. But of course, this is not oriented the right way. So let's go ahead and flip it around, and then I'm just going to reiterate what I was just talking to you about as far as directionality. If I turn this around, right now, is it correctly oriented the same as the other one? On this side, this is the deep curve. So right here, this is the deep curve also. So these should be exactly the same, and then the longer curve is on this side. But let's say I had done it like that, right? That is not the same. That is opposite, and it's not going to look identical to this one. So directionality here can be a big deal. You want to make sure that you're making an active choice to put something in a certain way, not just letting whatever happens happen. You know, you make the choice as the designer. You can do it either way, but it should be your choice, not just like, oh, that's what happened. Sorry. Okay, deeper curve on this side, and then just slowly come around that little space right there, and then just making sure that I get right where I left off in case I'm off. All right, so this is fun. I like this. Let's go ahead, and we won't even turn the sandwich this time. We're just going to shift everything, and we'll do the next circle. So needle up, and I'm going to raise my presser foot. I'm using my knee lift, and I want to shift my template so that the thread passes through. And then as soon as I'm done, I can just let the needle go right back to where it was. And then after it is needle holding everything in place, then I can adjust the circle. So I'll look back here. Again, we're going to sew 1.5 times around. So we'll do our double stitching on the opposite side this time. There's my 2 inches. I'm right on my center line. And now I can go ahead and keep this oriented the same way. The deep side of this curve is what we want. So we're going to raise our needle, and I'm going to use my knee lift and lift that up and just get my thread through there, just until I can see that the foot can align pretty well. If I need a little adjustment, I can always make that, get myself seated right where I left off, and then line this up right on the straight line. So this is 2 passes right here, and that's going to be exactly the same. This is going to keep everybody oriented the same way. So get right into that space, and then needle up, raise the foot, and then pass that thread through there just enough so that I can bring that right down. I think it's a little bit easier when you're going towards the circle. It's a little bit more complicated when you are doing it the other way. So I'm going to look back here, get the back line lined up, and then I'll be ready to put that last circle in. And let's see how I did with size. Did I measure well? So we'll smush just a little bit here so we can get right into our 2-inch space. This would be where I would want to maybe measure with my spacing gauge. Pretty good. He might be like a stitch or 2 over, so I'll hold him a little bit. Make sure he behaves. A little smushing, right? It's good. So right here, I'm not quite where I need to be. And it doesn't matter at this point because we don't have any more. So if I don't want to go around, I don't have to. But if I want to, then I can just go ahead and do it the same on this side. Right there. Okay, and then again, we'll keep it the same direction. So this time I will turn it just to let you make sure you see what I'm seeing. We want to have the deep side of the curve on this right hand side, which is the same as all the other ones that we've done. So we'll just lift up the needle first, and then lift up the foot, pass the thread through, and I'm trying to get this aligned. So I can just kind of lower that gently, make sure that I'm right in my center line, and put my needle down. And checking right here, since I did a little smushing, I want to make sure that this guy will still measure at that 1/4 inch, or if I need to smush on that side too. So I might need a little smushing on that side too. And then making sure I kind of hug this side instead of hug the outside as I come in. I'm finding that as I hit this, if I hug this, it's going to tighten up that design a little bit. All right, so let me show you one thing else before we go anywhere. Let's actually take this off. So there's no key on this side. If I want to actually take everything off, I either have to cut my thread or I have to pass through and come out this way. So we can do that. I think that's just another reason why we have this pass through, so that's pretty easy. And then let's take this off. Oh, so my daughter put these tapes on, thank God for her, and there's no little pull tab. So I have to give her some more information so she can make an easier decision. Let me pull this up. We'll put a little pull tab on there. You can see that's so much more complicated to get that off of there. I had to wiggle everything out of the way, move everything. Let's see. Di Warner says, if you have a high shank machine and a low shank ruler, can you pass the thread without lifting the needle? Di Warner, I don't know because I don't have this ruler in a low shank, but that is a really good question, and that would certainly be easier to do. I encourage you guys to let me know if somebody would try that. That would be awesome. Pam, the reason that I have to lift up the needle is because the foot height is too tall to just pass it through. This foot doesn't have enough room to lift up by itself and just pass the needle through. I have to lift it up. Now, you'll see that that might not be true for everybody. That's the comments that people are making. And so I encourage you to try that. I don't find that a big deal. If I was on my long arm, that is the common way that you would have to shift on a long arm to do some of those pass-throughs through some of the needle channels. You have to lift up your foot on the long arm. But you might not have to if you have that low shank foot. So let's find out. Somebody let me know, okay? So I was going to take it off so you could see it. Did you see it? Did you see it already? See, you asked me a question and then I was like, I don't know what happened. But don't you think that's so pretty? I love it. I think it looks so good. Let's come down just a little bit so you can see more. And with that great thread that's just so vibrant on there. So here what we have is everything is oriented the same direction, right? Same direction. So this is that deeper arc, and then this one is the long one. So now we're going to add one more element to this to show you something cool. So I didn't want to put my needle down because I want to put this back on here. So let's go ahead and we'll do that. Let's put it back on. And I'm going to put my tape back on. Let's do that first before we start moving things around. So I am being careful that the tape is not going to interfere with the circle itself. I don't want the circle, so I'm going to lift up my foot and I'm going to pass my thread through and I'm going to get my needle seated again. And then I'm going to show you something cool. Okay, so I'm all centered. So we said that if we have 2 iterations, they always bring you back to the bottom. In order to travel forward, I'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay? So we only were doing 2 of these, which did not bring us forward. So if we do it with 1 more of these arcs, then we could have that. So let me show you. Let's turn it around and get it oriented the proper way. We need to go this way. Okay. So this is the same arc that we sewed. Even though we oriented it on this right-hand side, it's the same. You can see that the 1/4 inch spacing is the same. Well, since we've rotated it now and we have this 1/4 inch marking right here, I don't need to sew this line because it's already sewn. If I sew on this side, what do you think is going to happen, right? Is your mind already going there? Watch. So I'll kind of fudge it a little bit, hug the inside of that right there, and then scoot over, get it lined up on the center, checking that 1/4 inch, and now watch. So we're just sewing the outside this time. Getting right into the center, and then scooting over. And this one looks like he needs a little smushy, so he can be in the right spot. Don't be afraid to make those adjustments yourself. Make the fabric adjustment or even make a stitch adjustment. If you need to short it just a little bit because you need to get into a certain spot, remember that you're in charge. The ruler's not in charge. You are. So I'm going to hug that inner part of the template right at the end. All right. So let's see. You guys have so much good information. Let's see what we can find out. What did you guys say? Somebody looks like they just tried it. Louise, I'll answer your question. What size and kind of machine needle are you using? Today I'm using a top stitch needle, and mine is actually from Schmetz. So it is this one right here, 9014. And I have bigger ones, but I don't need it. It's working really well. You always want to use the smallest needle that can be effective because then you have a smaller hole. The smallest needle that I think is effective with this 40 weight thread is this 9014, and this is a top stitch which has a pretty big eye. You can see that, right? Pretty big. So it also just works really well. The way it's designed, it can pass through all of these layers, and the groove is deep, so it lets the thread right in the groove and it protects it from abrasion. So that is really important. So let me tack this off, and I'm going to take this whole thing out. We'll cut our threads, and that way you can just see this really cute design. So you saw initially we just had the 2 lines, and that looks really cute, but I love it even more when we put another line in there. And that 3rd line would allow you to travel forward and just stitch your circle a single time. And I'm going to just explain that really quick one more time, because in case I was confusing. And we'll use our stitching line discs for this one just because we can. All right, or maybe we'll just do another one. We'll just sew one more down here, because this will show you maybe a little bit of an easier path. So you could see that we were able to put that on both sides, and then of course it fills up the circle more evenly. When we only have 2, we have a bigger space on this side and on one side. This will be short, but this will be bigger on one side. So that'll just be something for you to note. Let's put one more in, and I'll show you the path that we were just mentioning. And I'll just mark a little bit of that 1 1/4 so we can sort of make this symmetrical. Because eventually I'll probably sew it into something, right? I hope. So that way we can make a plan ahead of time. 1 1/4. And we just need a little bit. We don't need much. Okay. So we'll do one more. This is the difference between that movement that we just showed you, where we had to sew around 1 1/2 times so that we can get back to moving forward. On this one, we're just going to sew the circle 1 time, and then we'll be able to go 1, 2, 3, and we'll be right at the next circle. And then we'll do the circle 1 time, and then 1, 2, 3. So the number of rotations is important. It lets you make a little bit of a different choice about your path, and then you don't have to switch things as many times either. So, okay, let's turn it this way so you can see what I'm talking about. Get us right in the corner there. We'll get our needle seated right at the start. Pull up that bobbin thread. All right, now, since we are not overlapping our circle very much, what I'm going to do is right at the beginning here, I want to tack those threads a little bit better than I did with the other one, because the other one was fully stitched over and this one will not be. All right, so I'm aligned right here on this line, and when I start here, let's go just a little bit this way, and then I'm going to go this way. So I could just sew it 1 time. That way I'll end up tacking over those threads. Okay, so now I can do that same thing. So somebody was asking, if I lift my foot up right now, that's as far as my foot can lift up. Let's kind of bring you up a little so you can see that better. Right there. So my foot now is right now in the up position. Let's see if I can, this is my presser foot lifter, and it's all the way up. I can't even raise it anymore. So with this high shank foot, for me to have the room to do that, I'm going to have to move my needle into the up position. And then I'm going to lift up the foot, and I'll just scoot the ruler into position and put it kind of right in the middle there. Then I'll put my foot down, my needle down, and now we can sew. Okay, so we said 3 times, right? We're right in that position. So we'll go this way. 1, 2. And now we want to flip it around so that we have the wide position on the opposite side. Right there. And I'm going to adjust a little bit, make sure I can get right in there. Okay, so now we don't have to go backwards, forwards. We did all 3 of these right with 1 iteration, and now we'll be ready just to do the next circle. And that's easier than what we had done before when we just had the 2 of them. So just note that you have that option. It does change the spacing a lot, I think. So that'll be something for you to consider when you're doing your own design, what is the density that you want to have. It's a very different look. All right, so let's cut this and move on to something else. Okay. All right, let's see if we have any questions. Hi from Mount Vernon, Jean Brooks, how are you today? Let's cut these threads. I have one that kind of got stitched underneath, so he's kind of ornery. There we go. But I love that. Don't you think that looks so pretty? Okay, so that was the 2-inch size. And let's talk about, we're going to do something else now in the center right here. So let's make sure. This block in the center is an 8-inch block, right? So this line of the square is 8 inches, should be. What is this distance right here? This distance is the diagonal of a square. So if we're doing math and we multiplied it times 8 and then 1.414, that gives us this distance for this diagonal. So it's actually like about 11.3, some ridiculous number, right? So I can't actually make anything perfectly that size, but what I could do is I could put a little circle in here that could fit to the center. So I decided that I was going to use my 2.5 because I know that I can fit 5 inches, I can fit 2 units right here. So let's go ahead and we'll stitch those 2 units, and we need to think about, you know, how many iterations are we going to fill up. We're going to start with just 2 on these circles, and we want the initial ones to all go the same direction. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Give me just a second. Okay. So I'm going to, let me get my ruler out. Let's make some markings so you can know what I'm doing. Let's see, I think we'll use this one. This will give us our most easiest measure. Our 2.5 inch circle, if I start from the middle and I measure out to 5, then that can fit 2 of those circles into that space. So that's what we're going to do right off the bat. All right, and so the decision to use this 5, there's 2 things that I decided would make a difference. I want to make sure that my circle doesn't necessarily stitch out of this boundary. So if I have the circle starting here and it bows out, let me show you what will happen. If we line it up right there, right on that center position, oh, it's upside down, right there, we can pretty much get it to sew right inside. Right there. So this 1/4 inch right here, we should be able to get it lined right up. I think that this one is a little bit off. It is not centered there at all. Can you see that? Mine must have a little bit of a funny business going on because this is way bigger and this one is narrower. So I'm going to fudge it a little bit. So you should be able to align this right on the center line of the diagonal, and we should have the same measurements on both sides. But for some reason, I think that this line might be a little crooked, so I'm going to have to make an adjustment. So if you see that, you'll know why. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'll figure it out. And then that way I can put the whole circle in here. If I tried to put this all the way to the corner, like this, with the 1/4 inch, notice that this is going to sew outside the circle, and I don't want that. I want my design to fit in. So by making that decision to measure from the center out to here, I know that I can fit those 2 circles in and not exceed the boundary of the block. So that's a lot of the play that I did to figure that out. I could also start it right here in the corner and just sew until I got to the boundary and just cut the rest of the circle off. So there's more than one way to do it. So let's do a couple. We need to mark each of those because we're going to make sort of a whole design for this space real quick. So there's my 5 inches right there. And one more. How many people have this, have played with this, or have ever even seen this design? So there, I think there is an actual quilt design that Janet Collins has made that actually uses this. So let's go ahead and we'll start putting these in. This is where we want to start our needle, right at that 5. So let's go ahead and we'll get that. And I did think about my path ahead of time, but I will also tell you that I think that I'm going to have to do several different things to kind of maneuver around the design as we're doing this. So you'll see that. I'm sure you'll see that as well. So let's get that in there. Let's do our circle first. Put our needle in place before we start. Okay. So let me get it lined up. And like I said, I think this one for me, I think mine is maybe a little bit off because when I line it straight up, oh, that's much better. I don't know what I was doing before, but that looks a lot better. Now it's on the line. It has the same amount of space here and here, and I'm right on that center line. So let's go ahead and we'll sew one circle. And I'm thinking ahead. I want to sew just 2 of the units, so I need to be able to go down and back so that I can get up to the next circle, okay? So that means that if I do that, let's get these threads out of here, then I should be on the other side. So I'll come up to here, and now I'm going to go ahead and do that same shift. So right away, lift up my needle and raise my foot. And I'm going to just get right through the pass-through and try to get my foot just seated right there without, I could even do it like this, just get this out of the way. And then we'll just put our needle right back down. So I do want to do my little arc in this. So let's make sure that we are going the same direction for all of these, because when we do these, we want to have them have the same relationship. So right now, on my left side of the circle, when I'm looking at the corner, I'm going to put this on this side. And then I'll just keep doing that so whenever I get to the outermost edge, that those pieces will be the same. Do they have to be the same? No, they don't. You can do whatever you want to do, but I'm going to make them that way because I want that. So right back to the center. And then same thing, we'll just do the pass-through and I can cut these threads and we'll get to the center. All right. So I could do this part right now without even shifting anything if I wanted to. Let's go ahead and do that. We can line it up. You'll see it's aligned right here on this line because I went ahead and I made that reference line. And I don't think that line is on these templates. What I did is I marked right here through the 1/4 inch so that I knew where my needle position should be. So that could be just an additional marking that you might find useful. You can see that right now it lines right up on there and it's right here. And these marks are marked on the bottom so that this is vis-a-vis marker. I'll show you. Do not mark on your quilt with this. If anybody says Kate Quinn told them they could mark on their quilt with this, I'm going to say, no, 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 don't do that. This can mark on acrylic and it will wipe off. It will wipe off with a wet marker, which means that if it's on my quilt right now and my quilt is not wet, then it's not going to come off on my quilt. So that's why I'm okay to use that. I would not use a dry erase marker in this instance against the quilt because it's just going to wipe off on the quilt. So you'll see I've added some of these extra markings just so that I could align things pretty easy. And we're doing the same orientation for this part of the design. And then we'll come over here. We did pretty good. We lined right up where we want to be. Right in the center there where the circle is. So let's go ahead and we'll make our circle now. Needle up, raise the foot, pass through, and then just get my needle right back into position. We'll orient the circle this way, right on the center, and right here again we have those same reference lines, so I'll kind of smush them a little bit so I can be right where I want to be. Now, one of the things that we can do with this design is I can put all of the circles in if I want to. Right here from the center, we can do all of them. So we'll come back to the center. And then let's keep going. We'll do this side and get lined up at the back. I think I'm going to turn him right there. He's kind of not letting me get aligned as much as I want to, because this is offset right there a little bit. So I'm right on the line at the back and right on this center line right here. We'll put this circle in. And again, I'm thinking about which direction do I want to go right now. So if I go down and up with the S-curve, I'm going to end up there. I want to end up down here so I can keep moving down. So I need to go a little bit further. And let's talk about direction again. Let me show you kind of what my thought process is here. I want this to be kind of have these going in the same direction. So if I can put something over on this side, then I want all of these to go in the same direction, all of these little arcs right there. So we are going to make this one go the opposite direction, right? I'll show you what I mean. This will go like this would go like this would go like that, right? So this is opposite right here, the opposite direction. Okay, so needle up, press your foot up, get my thread to pass right through there, and get my foot seated. Here, we'll even come over a little bit so we're not fighting with the fabric. Get my needle right in the same spot, and then when we line this up, let's make sure we're going the right way. This is going to give me that opposite orientation of this one, with this on this side, okay? And then, well, let's flip it. I think we should do it the other way. Is that right? There we go. That's what we want. Because this one is going to be with this part on the outside, and this will be opposite now. So let's get aligned right on the center. Getting all my lines lined up. Here we go. And then I think I'll take one more stitch to get right to the center, and then we'll do this next one. So let's turn it just a little bit so you can see what I'm seeing right here. Right there. We'll get right into that center position. And we want to have everybody end right at that spot. That's 5 inches there from the center. So right there, I cross right on that line. Let's see, are we on the right direction? Yeah, we are. Okay, and now we'll put the circle in. Right there. Oh, there we go. Sorry. All right, I'm looking at the back. I'm getting everybody lined up. And right here, if I feel like I need to, I can check a little bit with my spacing gauge, make sure that we're right in the same line. All right, here we go. Right there. Okay, I think it looks good. I think we're right on the line. We should be able to put that circle right in. We'll just put a little extra thread in there because we can. We'll tack that. All right, so let me show you what we got so far. This is on that diagonal. Let's cut some threads. So that directionality can play a big role. You can see that we have these two kind of going this way and these two going this way. And then if we do this on the same side, we would want these to kind of match up. And they might have a little bit of cutting into each other right here. So the way that you can decide that, if you do want them to cut in or you don't, is you can line this up right on there with your spacing gauge, with your stitching line discs. And let me just show you what that's going to look like a little bit so you can make some decisions with me. I think I'll flip that around not to have that little cutaway on that side. So my needle is going to go right at that space right there. Right there. So this would be the circle, right? And if we did the next one and we scoot it up, let me show you what's going to happen. We don't necessarily have to sew into this area if we don't want to, right? This is what it's going to look like. It's going to cut into that, right? But we could just stop. We could just sew this. But let me show you another option right here. Let's say we're right there. We could play with our little curvature right here, and we could decide which one is going to get us into the center the nicest way. And I think that this piece on this side, because this is a wide arc right here, we can just get right into the center like this. And he's not going to cut in very much. And he's just going to give a little bit of overlap, and he'll come right into that center position. So you'll get just a little bit right here. I wouldn't want to do it as much on the opposite side, but you can play with that. You can decide what you want to do. So what we'll do is we'll do this bottom one, and we'll put the arc in here. We'll just put this part, and we'll come back to the center, and then we'll just arc in just on one side. And that's just playing with it and seeing what it can do, making some decisions for yourself. You can always overlap them if you wanted to. We could always leave these circles empty and just have the overlap as part of this center portion of the design. Kathy, I just saw your question, so I'm going to go ahead and answer that for you real quick. The discs that I'm using are called stitching line discs. And what the function of those discs are is, if I were to just take this right here and just trace with a pencil, then that is not the true shape that would stitch. The reason for that is the needle is a 1/4 inch away from the edge of the foot right here. So if I'm trying to copy what is actually going to be my sewn line, then I would need to account for that 1/4 inch space difference. So I just took my spacing gauge off, and of course now I can't find it. What did I do with it? Here it is. I'll show you. Let's get in here a little bit closer so you can see better. Right there, I'll just put my needle down so you can see the relationship. The needle is a 1/4 inch away from the edge of the foot right there. So no matter where I sew, there's always this space differential between the edge of the foot here and the needle here as well. And so these little discs are taking advantage of that. They're going to be chosen based on what dimension you need. So right now you see that the center opening here is really, really fat. Well, that would be really useful if I'm using something that has a really fat marking tool like that. See, and even that's a little bit fat for that, but this is about the biggest, and this is the right size for this chalk. If I was using something that's really, really skinny and fine, like this, then I need something that is much narrower. So let me see if I can find one for that. Something like that might be a good fit for this. As long as your marker can pass through the opening and you can actually write, then that is the correct size, because you don't want this wiggling around a lot when you're trying to make an accurate line. So within that stitching line disc packet, there's 8 of these, and they have 2 of each different size, and those are really functional. So definitely get those if you want to explore that inner designer kind of a look for yourself. So let's go ahead and we'll take our needle back up, and let's go ahead, and here I would do this center piece that's going to fill up this design, and then I would start with these other sides. And since we are going to be coming into the center right here, once I'm in the center, then I can work my way to this part of the design easily. So I can do both diagonals in one pass each, essentially. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get ourselves aligned right here at our, and this is that essentially 5 inches from that center position, because this is 2.5 and 2.5. All right. Marty asked, could you just sew to the stitch line and make it look like it's underneath? So yeah, Marty, actually that is what we are planning. When we sew this one, we'll sew the circle and we'll put the curve in there. And from here, we're going to stop at this outer boundary, but then this maybe curve. Oh, I see what you mean, like the inside too. Okay, I'll try that. I'm game. I'm game for that. You guys always have good ideas. Sure, why not? And again, I love that you guys are offering these suggestions. What it says is that you're taking the design in and you're putting your own flair on it and seeing things that you might choose. I love that. I always want that for you. You should totally feel free to do whatever you want to do. So let's go ahead. We'll sew the whole circle, and we want to go up and back. So when we start our curve, we need to be on the inside. This is where I know that we are the correct measure. If I knew over here, I could start on this side, but I didn't measure for that, so I don't know. So we'll come to the inner position. So we want the wide part of this to be on this outer side. Or do we want it on this side? Let's see. Let's flip it over. I don't know. I think we might want it to be, it's wider on this side, but it comes right into the center. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Let's play. I'm just trying to decide which directionality that we want this side to go on, because we have to get oriented for that first before we do the other one. So let's go ahead. We'll pass it through into that wide space, get that needle seated before we move anything. And let's try it, because I think it might be good to put it in this way right there. Let's check it. Yeah, I think this might be good because this is the 1/4 inch. It's going to pass right by there. So let's make this one go that way too. That way we can keep them all the same. All right, I'll turn it. I'll get aligned right there at the 1/4 inch. It's right on my crossover, and I'm right in the center line right there. So I'll do both sides all in one pass. Instructionally, let's talk for a second about movement, okay? Do not be trying to rotate around your foot. I'm going to try and come out a little bit and show you what I mean. Sometimes I see people, they do it like this. They kind of go like, woo. See that I'm turning, 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 turning? Don't do that. Pull, okay? Just pull towards you, away from you, whatever you need to do. We should be keeping this straight. This sandwich should not be rotating around at all. So actually, I'll try and straighten it out here. I don't know if that'll let you see. Let's straighten it out this way, because that's where we're headed. And I'll try to keep this just like this and show you that you do not need to rotate anything when you're sewing. Okay, so we've got our orientation on this side. We're going to keep this the same direction. Pick up my needle, and I'm going to raise up the foot and just pass my thread right through there and just get my needle seated right in the same spot. So I didn't move the fabric. The needle went right back where it was supposed to. And then we'll get lined right up on our straight line so that we're right in the center. And here we're going to sew out and touch, and then over here, out and touch. Okay? Notice that I'm not going to rotate. Okay? I'm not turning this at all. He is staying right in the same line. But I am allowing the foot to move front to back in order to follow that curve. So same thing on this side. But no rotation. Notice that this is not twisting. He's just shifting front to back or left to right. So we'll come back to the center. Okay? And now we have the curve that we can put in there. And that curve will get us to the center. So Marty was saying that what she would do is she would do the curve and maybe stop wherever it touches this line right here. So that is one option that we can do. And I'll go ahead and I'll align to the center once we put the curve on, and then we'll just draw one in and we'll sew the other one. That way you can see both ideas. So pass that through, and I'm going to kind of get to where there's some more open space so I can just get my needle right where I want to be. And then we'll put this on. This one we're saying is going to come right into that, or we can go this way. We can make it go either way. Let me just put my little disc back on there so we can draw a little bit. So we already oriented it so that it would fit with this curve on this side, which is going to match the other side. So it's going to come in just like this. So this is what Marty was suggesting, that we stop at the line, and this is what I'm suggesting, that we would just follow this a little bit. And if it's overlapping, what I probably would do is I would actually probably try to follow the other line. So it looks like it maybe needs a little smush right there. That means that these lines shouldn't really overlap at all. So do you guys want to decide? Do you want to stitch stopping here and then just coming back to the center? Or do you want to not? What do you think? I think Marty had a good idea. I'm going to try her method. So let's do this. Just like we did on the last one, we sewed right to the boundary. And then we'll come back here and we'll sew this other side. And that gets us right to there. Okay, and now what do we have to do? What do you think? I don't know if we can use this curve. I don't think we can. Ooh, we can. Look at that. Right there. Do you see that? That's a 1/4 inch. That's going to get us right into the center. Woohoo! I love it. Good job, Marty. You're a smarty. That's what I'm going to call you from now on. Okay, let's do this other one. So we got to get ourselves, oh, now it's tricky though, because now we don't know how to get to the other side, right? Okay, let's do the circle first. We're going to have to get it to the circle, otherwise we won't be able to do it, right? Okay, the circle is the boundary, so we have to put that in place first. We can't do those other parts without it. Okay, let's line it up. We're right on the center. So what that tells me is I have to get out to this in order to do this. I don't want to guess, and I don't necessarily want to sew along this really in a difficult fashion. So I need to be at a 1/4 inch, which is right here, and on this side about right there. You can even use your spacing gauge to mark that. And this shape is this shape right there. I don't have to travel in a difficult fashion. I can literally set this right on here, and I can use my 1/4 inch and get right to my space. I think we always want circles to be really precise, so let's measure this a couple of places, get ourselves right in the line, and now we should be able to just sew right on that line, right to our designated spot right there. Ooh, I love it. Okay, now, in order to make sure that we're aligned properly, what do we have to do? I'm going to show you. We're measuring that if our needle was in this center position. So what we have to do is get to that center position again. So maybe we need to come in 1 stitch. I think our estimate was a little overzealous. We want the center line here, and we want to be a 1/4 inch away from the center right there. Right here you can see this line and this line. This goes right through the middle, and that is the spacing that we're looking for. So now we have the arc here for our circle. And we'll come back to the center position. So I did tell you guys when we started, there's a lot of finagling in order to fit all of these in and try to make them continuous. But that's okay, right? So I want to show you something. Let's see if I can take this off so I can show you what I want to show you. I might have gone the wrong way. We'll see. We made these go opposite, so now we want to make sure that this also goes opposite, right? This one has this part. He would have this part coming right here, just like this one, but these are opposite. See, this one's on the outside and this one's on the inside. This would have this deep part on the inside and this part on the outside. So what we want to try to do is match it on this side. So right here, we want to have the deep part here, and let's see, so then we would have to have this part on the other side. So let's play with that real quick. Let me get my chalk out so we can think about it. So this one's the outside, so we want the deep one on the outside over here, the deep part that would come in, and then the shallow part is going to be on the inner side right here. Okay, so when we line it up, now we know which direction that we need to go. I I know, I told you directionality is a challenge, isn't it, with this one? Because they're not the same. You've got to plan ahead. You've got to think about which direction are they going to go. Okay. So let's pass through, get our needle onto the other side. Does this seem complicated to you? But it's fun, right? It's totally fun. So that's the part that I like about it. Sometimes I think some of the designs, you know, they can be as complicated as you want. We can just do this in a line and just keep going, keep going, keep going. But if we want to play with it and we want to change directionalities, then we got to pay attention a little bit so we can get them in the right direction. So we said we want the deep part on this outer part, and we'll just sew that as piecemeal, right? So we'll sew this in to touch like that and back out. And then we want to sew this part so we won't move anything, but we'll just sew out till we touch and come back. And then we're right where we need to be. We want to keep this oriented the same direction for that next one, and we can sew this without shifting. So just so you can see, we'll align this. We can sew both of these. Would I actually sew this on a quilt with all that finagling? Guys, what a silly question. You know I would. I don't care if it's a lot of maneuvering. I just want it to look awesome. And if it looks awesome, I'm good to go. All right, let's go ahead and we'll get ourselves seated for that last circle. That looks so cool. All right, and then let's see. So I'm aligned right here on this line, right through the center, and right down there. And right there, when you're looking at that, that should be that perfect 1/4 inch, right? So if there's a little finagling, you can do some smushing, but he should fit really well right there. So we'll go ahead and we'll sew that in. And we're just putting a few extra stitches in there because we can, right? Ooh, I like it, I like it. All right, let's go ahead and we'll cut that. And get those threads out of there. So let's see if you can see it. I'm going to cut one more thread and then I'll show you one more thing. And then we have about one more design. I can usually get about 3 to 4 designs in the amount of time that we have. So what do you think? Doesn't that look so cool? I love it. It's so fun. So, you know, let's see if we can come out a little bit so you can see a little bit more of it all at once, right? Can't have you smushing up right there. So, and the other thing that I think would be kind of fun is we have this same overlap, like the circles are the same distance. So what I think would be kind of cool is you could either echo this, because this is sort of a matching shape. This should be the center division right through here. So you could echo the arcs right here and put a little space around it, or you could do piano keys, because the straight lines I think would go really well to offset that and kind of fill in this space. So as you ditched, you could come in and you could do that and a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch. And you could even start it from the center position and move out so that you have the same amount of piano keys on each side. Like you could put it right through the center and right through the center this way, and that could be your center position. And then you could measure each of your piano key lines away from that. So I think that would be really, really great offset for this curvy nature of this design, and it would bring your eye back to the center, because this is where all the motion is happening, you know. So really fun for that. I think that would be a really fun idea. Okay, so let's move on to that last design, and this one we're going to show you maybe a little different idea of how we can use the space and still use these really cool circles. So this is a 5-inch space right here on the corner. It's already measured. I'm going to mark the opposite diagonal so that we have both of those. Now, if I wanted to put something that would fit exactly in here, this is 5 right here. So if I wanted to put my little curve in here, this would fit exactly at 5 inches. So the one that we just used, that's the 2.5 right here. That's this width. So if I wanted to sort of make a frame around here with that little curvature, I could. He would fit on there perfectly. But again, this is going to sew outside the boundary. So that would just be something that you would have to know. Like if you had a certain amount of distance, height, maybe a 6-inch border, and you made the 5-inch inside of it, this could be a really fun border because you'd still be measuring it off of the 5, but then your outer boundary would be out here. So this wouldn't be sewing outside the boundary. So that's just an idea for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the diagonals, and we're going to start at the corners, and we're going to cut the circle off. Whatever it is, that's what it is. And then we're going to put something in the center to connect all of the dots. Okay, so let's do that. So let's see what we can do. Dimensionally, if this is 5, this is maybe like around 7 something, right? So we don't really have something that is half of 7. We don't have a 3.5-inch circle, so we don't care. We'll just do whatever we want. We can put the 3-inch circle in here, and it would fill up a lot right there, but not everything. It wouldn't fill up everything. So let's just play with that. Let's see what we can do. We might not want it to be too big. We want a little space because I want to show you some other cool thing that we're going to put in the middle there. So let's make it a little bit smaller. Maybe this size. I did play with this, but there's always so many design options that I end up with that sometimes I can't decide. Okay. Okay, I think that's probably good. That'll let us put some of our fun ideas in there. All right, and then if I'm going to do this and I start my circle, I have to align the circle on there first because I don't know where my foot needs to go yet, right? So we want him to sort of start right there, space-wise, but then the foot actually is going to sew over here. Like if the needle were positioned at the center, see how it's going to sew outside the boundary right there? Let's get you in a little bit closer. Can you see that it's a little too far out of the space? Okay, so we are aligning this right on this center line, but the stitch position is over there, right? And that's where we're going to pick up our bobbin thread, right there. Because remember what we said, we're not going to sew outside the boundary. We're just going to go ahead and sew from this position. Oh, I think I'm not cut from the other side, darn it. So it's this side. Oh, okay, we'll cut that one. We probably have some thread hanging out under there now. Darn it, failed to cut that bobbin thread. Okay, let's go ahead and get the needle seated in position, and then we'll adjust the ruler. And let's get these threads underneath. So just to show you real quick, I want to make sure you see what the orientation is. We are trying to be 1/4 inch away from that corner, but we are not sewing this bottom half. We're only sewing this top half right here. Okay? So let's sew this way. And we can go back to the center. We're going to put our little yin and yang in there. And this will pretty much even get us almost over to the side. Like if we went like this, we'd be in the center. So that is something that you can evaluate. Let me show you what I mean. Right here as we line up, I can see that I have 1/4 inch right here. Right there. And if I smushed it a little bit, I could probably get right to the center of there. So that could be something fun, like if I, sewed over a little bit, but we're not in position. Let's go ahead and turn it, and we'll put our little arcs in there. Needle up, and pass through, and then gently try to get our foot into position. There we go. So then we'll rotate it, and we're going to come right back to it. Now he should get us right to this corner. If I use this side, I will not sew outside the boundary because this side is the side that will fit. This side won't fit. So if I want to do both, I can, but again, this side you'd sew to the boundary and then back. So we'll do that first, and then the other side will get us to the corner, which is something useful that we need to do our next one. So then go this way, and this will get us right to that corner, right inside the boundary. So now that I've finished this corner, let's take this off and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, and I'll get my needle seated right down in that spot. And we can leave this open right now because we're going to end up aligning this over here. So don't put the key back in yet. What we're going to do is we're going to sew over, and before we do that, let's estimate where we need to be. Remember, we said that we need to be a 1/4 inch away right there, and we're aligning on this reference line. So we know that our foot is going to end right about there, about a 1/4 inch away. So this is an estimate right here. When we sew straight along there, this is where we can go ahead and stitch to. And what we can also do is we can actually fill in any space that we want. Like right here, we're going to stitch from this corner, so we could stitch all the way to the corner and back, however we want it. If we want to ditch this all at the same time, that would be an option that we have. Also, we can use this straight edge to get us down to that spot. We don't even need another ruler in order to do this because it has a pretty nice straight line right there. Right there, and then we'll just use our spacing gauge. Let's cut some of these threads. So this design is basically fitted to the corner of the space. And then that means that there'll be some opening in the middle of the space. So about right there, give or take. And now I can put this on. I didn't have to, take the key out again. I'll just put him back on this way and put my key on. So I think that one of the things that we're showing a lot in today's lesson is kind of estimating where you need to reposition for. So we said we wanted this right on that center line, and that's the 1/4 inch right there. You can use your spacing gauge and measure right from the corner there. And if it's, a stitch or two off, it's not a big deal. Nobody's going to know, right? So we'll sew this way to the boundary right there. Get right to the center. And we're going to do that same thing. We're going to put this same design on. And we kind of want them to go the same direction. Or you could make them mirror. You could make 2 of them match and 2 of them match over here. Or you can make them all go in the same direction like they're going in a circle. That would be a design decision for you to play with. You have lots of options for how you would want to set that up. Needle down in the center position, and I'm going to try to orient mine just the same. So this is the deeper curve on the far side and the shallower curve on the near side. So that would put it like this, with the deeper arc on the outside and then the deeper, oh, what am I saying? Let me show you. Just see it. It's easier that way. Remember we said that on this left side, this is the longer curve, and he's going to fit us right into the corner. And then this one is a little bit deeper. He'd go outside. So we'll sew right to the boundary on this side and back. So touching that chalk line right there and coming back. And then this little guy will get us right to the corner. So this is where I was talking to you about how you could sew to the corner, because we have to close him a little bit. So at this point, if I take him out and I take all this off, I'm going to go ahead and connect those dots before I do anything. I'm not going to try to leave a little gap right in there. So let's put this down. I'll show you what I mean. We have a little space that is not closed, right? From the previous part of the design, this part is not closed. So I would want to close that. Next time when we sew that in, it might be useful to just sew to the corner and back to the dot, and that way you can travel around and get everybody closed all at the same time. there will be double stitching in those spaces no matter what. And I'm okay with that, it's fine. So same thing here, I can use some of these straight lines. I can line up right on that line. And hopefully, if I've marked everything properly, that should give me a perfect square right here where I'm sewing, right at 1/4 inch. So we know that we need to come back in, so let's mark the corner first before we do anything. We need to be 1/4 inch away from this edge right there. And so we'll mark that so we know where we want to stop. Here's our 1/4 inch away right there. So we're going to sew all the way down and back to the dot, okay? That way we don't have to worry about closing that later. Once we have this all lined up perfectly, this will make a nice, clean, straight edge. We'll close that design all the way down. And then we'll just come right back to the dot. Can I see my dot? I think that's it right there, I hope. We'll find out, right? We can always adjust later if we need to. All right. Oh, and I shouldn't have put my key in, right? Because I didn't need to. I should have put that on after. Okay, so let's get aligned. We're right on that center line. We should be able to use all of our reference lines, and we want to scoot down so we have that 1/4 inch right there from the corner. So use that spacing gauge. That's going to give you that correct marking. So here, we'll sew the circle, boundary to boundary, and then right back to the center to get us positioned for the next part of the design. And we'll do it exactly how we did this one. So pass it through, get it to where it's open so we can put our needle right back down. I think that holds your place the best if you try not to move the sandwich. And then let's get it lined up for you. So let's see, we said this way. The wider arc on the left side and getting us right into the corner, because this one is the one that sews outside the boundary, and this will bring us right to that corner position right there. So these are random rules in the sense that I just make these up, and I decided that that was what I was going to use to keep the design symmetrical and repeatable. So now I'm right down at the corner, and now we can take him off, and then we'll move down to the last piece and we'll get that last corner in. So I'll just hold that in place so that the sandwich isn't moving. Right away, I want to put that needle down if I can, and then I can scoot this out of the way. And I'll just put these aside and use that straight edge. So we're right here at the corner, and we can sew all the way down. Let's estimate our position for where we need to stop, and we'll put our little dot there. And I'll try to make it a little bit more visible this time because I think I was having trouble seeing it. So 1/4 inch is approximately right there. We're going to sew all the way down to the corner and back to the dot. And if we need to make any adjustments in order to get that to fit properly, then we can. I like to check in 2 places. That'll help make sure that the design closes better, nice and smooth to the corner. And then we'll come back to our dot, which is right there, and then we can put this on. All right, and let's get lined up right on that center position and right at 1/4 inch. Now, if I can't get him where he needs to be, I might have to adjust that position. I think I need 1 stitch back because he wouldn't let me line up on that center line right there and be spaced 1/4 inch away. So that's what I needed right there. And I'm right in the middle, so let's stitch that. We'll come right back to the middle right there. And then we'll do that pass through and we'll put that last corner and then we'll finish and close it. And then I'm going to show you something else that we can do. So right here, I'm just going to move the ruler. I'm holding the fabric sort of in place so that I don't shift that, so I can get my needle easily right in that same position there. So then let's look at the directionality here. we keep having to rotate this to put this wider arc on this left side. Okay, and then we'll get aligned right on the corner, and I'm a 1/4 inch away right there where I need to be. So we'll put this partial in, touch the boundary, and then come back to this side, and we'll put this side in. Get us right to that corner. Oh, beautifully. We are landed right in the exact stitch right where we left off. So let's put this last bit of this line in here. Again, letting the needle seat itself as quickly as possible so there's less potential for shifting around. All right, and then let's put this in. We'll close this whole part of the design, and then we just have one more little fun thing we're gonna put in there. All right, I'm gonna try to adjust this a little bit. Looks like I'm a little far out of tolerance on the line there, so I'm gonna try to close these as best we can. Now, when would it be a good time to use a block like this? I think this would be a really fun design where if you had some kind of smaller square or some kind of embroidery or some kind of feature in this area, these all kind of leave this open and fun. So let's go ahead and you could also, like I said, you could do these on the center as well. We've done them, we've chosen to do them on the diagonal, but they can be done on either corner. So you don't necessarily have to use the whole circle. You can always use a part of it. As long as you have a mechanism for controlling how you travel around the design, you can see that this gives a lot of motion, but it still leaves some space here for something fun. And we can even put our yin and yang circle in there. This would fit kind of a big circle right there actually, like that. And we could probably even fit the 3-inch in there because he may just kiss in the middle. Let's see. Yeah, if he'd fit in there. They wouldn't touch, but we could put this in the center. And then you could just rotate those curves around a few times and put those in the middle, just like these. The other option that I was going to share is I thought it might be fun to maybe just put maybe some of the curves in there, like kind of like a spinifex. So let's try that, and we'll use the spaces that are on these orientations, okay? So let me check one thing before we start. I gotta make sure we have power because it's about done. So we just got a few more minutes. We'll go ahead and we'll put that in. This has the potential to be used like a spinifex anywhere, and you can use either side. Just like a spinifex, it would have two different orientations. One side would look one way and one side would look the other way. So we'll put the needle right in the center. And let's put this in as well. Do you guys have a preference which side that you'd like to see? So the one side that is more even, I'll call that the back-to-back side. And it should fit in this block, because if this is 2.5, he should fit all the way to the corner, and this should align right in the center, because remember we said that this is 5, this square is 5, so a straight line across should bring us right to the very edge. And let me show you right here. This is going to fit over here. He'll kiss right there. He won't actually touch because that is a 1/4 inch. Or we can do this other side, or we can do both. Do you guys have a preference? So this side right here with this is a sort of the back-to-back side, and this is the elongated side. So choice 1 is this side, the wider curved side. Choice 2 is the back-to-back side, and choice 3 would be doing both of them as a spinifex. So if you have a preference, you can just let me know. No preference? Both. Okay, both it is. I see a bunch of boths. Okay, so here's another question for you. If we do both, this is busy on this side, and he's going to touch more. We could always switch it around so that the busy side has a little less, right? Again, with that directionality thing. So if I line this up, He's longer right there. Well, I don't think that does anything. In this particular instance, I don't think it does anything. Let's get these threads out of here so we can have some room to move. Right there, he's in my way. Right there. Then I'll just keep moving those out of the way as we sew. This top one is on top. Get him under there. All right, here we go. So we'll just do it how we did it the first direction, and this will be that last piece. So right along the bottom, again, this is that 2.5. This is the width of this, and because our square is 5, he's gonna just go all the way down and he'll be perfect. So this is using just this part of the curvy part, and there's not gonna be any circle at all. We're just using these curvy parts. So just like we've done with the spin effects before, you can do this and you can use the crosshair square and you could just align things just like that, and I think it would look so cool. So touch your boundary and then come backwards. And it's the space relationship that you always want to think about, because he's going to fit perfectly on this north, south, east, and west. And we'll just rotate him, keep him lined up. But if you had, a gap, you could always then multiply this. Like half of this curve is going to be half of 2.25. 2.5. So you'd get 1.25. So if you just wanted to keep going, you could just keep moving this down, and you can just use this curve by itself as a straight line. So that would also be, I think, really cute. Touch the boundary. Right when you go over this little, I want to call it the knuckle right here, just want to go slowly right around there so you can have a nice, good, smooth curve. And then this is the last one, and we'll get him aligned. Let me just show you what I'm checking. I can see that there's a little differential of space, like he cuts in a little bit more and a little less on this side, so I can adjust a little bit. And let's get these threads out of the way too, because otherwise I'm going to sew through them. All right, and we'll get lined up right there, a little smushy. And now we have a little better balance between the two designs where they hit. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll just tack this off with a few tacking stitches, and then we'll be done. Was there anybody that had any last questions that didn't get answered yet? So Honey was making something awesome. It smells so good. Dinner's soon, I hope. And so he had to step out for a minute, but I wasn't able necessarily to keep up with all of the questions. So if you have one that you have a burning question that didn't get answered, go ahead and let me know, and we can go ahead and get that answered for you. Doesn't that look so fun right there? It just has a lot of cool movement, I think. And the way that we oriented these, I think it's kind of reminiscent of this. The angle is the same, but they're just starting their curve at a different point. And I think it looks so pretty. Right? So you can play with them in so many different ways. Again, you don't have to use all of the curve. You don't always have to use the circle. You can just use the curvy line. You can use either side. You can use it on both sides. So know that you have a lot of options. I'm just going to real quick reiterate. This one is the space relationship when you just do both sides. So one side of this circle is going to have much more openness if you just do two of these curvy lines on the inside. One part of your yin and yang will be much wider and one will be shallower like this. If you do all three of them, the circle is going to be more balanced, and you're going to have essentially about the same amount of open space between each one of your lines from the outer edge to the inner lines. This is a more balanced design, whereas this is a little bit more weighted to this part of the yang arc right there, okay? The thread that I had is, I'll pull it out actually since we're done sewing. I'll just pull it right out of there. Here it is poly sheen, which is a Mettler polyester thread. And the number that I used was, let's see, on here, 9914. So pretty. Isn't this gorgeous? So gorgeous. I love this thread.
You can flip it over the fabric.
Yeah, so let's show the back. All right, so let's see if we can come out a little bit. I got some threads everywhere. Looks like I need to clean up some tension issues right here from when I have some little cuts right here from different areas. People always ask about this. This is because I'm taking too many stitches right in that spot. So if you are trying to adjust, you know, we were trying to pass the needle through, so that means there's a little slack right here in this thread. Sometimes if that does happen and you know you introduced a little slack, before you start stitching, you can actually pull back on your top thread a little bit to tighten it up, and that might help alleviate that little slack buddy right there. Okay, so let's see, there's our, right there, that was our border. This is just straight line and 3 lines or 2 lines. We showed you the path for both of those. And then this one was how we did it, and we measured from the center, and we knew we could fit 2 of these, so there'll be a little space gap right here, but that allows the full circle to be in that design and not be cut off or sewn outside the boundary. And this design actually was Honey's design. He actually said, oh, you haven't done anything from the corner, you know, why don't you try something like that? I was like, oh my gosh, what a great idea. So I have to give him credit because he had a really great idea. And then Marge, I really liked your idea of making it look like these went underneath. So thank you for that. I appreciate your add-in. That was a really great idea. And I love how it kind of creates that mishmash of motion right here in the center. And again, I think the straight lines would be really useful. And then this is that one where we kind of have a lot of motion. It's almost like a wave. So really, really fun. And size would be the key that would make these matter. You know, we can make these bigger or smaller. We can move it in so we have more of the circle. This would still, we'd be able to get more of this circle. We started from the center, but we could actually move it up because you know that we had that a little bit of spacing in there. As long as we can just fit the circle in there, we don't care if he's right at the corner. You could have pushed that circle up. Let me show you what I mean real quick. If this was the alignment, as long as he won't fit inside, we could actually make the circle this big, right? This is the 1/4 inch right there where he would touch the outer edges, and see how the circle's not right at the corner? But this would still work, and we would get a bigger piece right here. You'd get more of this. You wouldn't get to the edge right there. Maybe you would. No, your curve would stop wherever your 1/4 inch is. So that's kind of like the limiter right there. But you could always make the curve go further if you wanted to. So anyway, you guys, it is 4:34, and I think Honey's giving me the high sign that he needs some help with dinner. So since he helped me, I'm going to help him too. I hope you had fun, and you know, I think that the one thing I wanted to just mention as a really quick thing, this is not strictly speaking 100% back to back. There's a little bit of a front loading on one side or the other. Like this is a proportion of a circle right there, but this side is a little bit of wider. So you could do something similar with the back-to-back, but you'd only get one side. You're not going to get this offset then that fits a little wider into it. And that's why the yin and yang is different than just using a circle or just using the mini multi-arc or something like that. You'll not be able to get this wider piece of that. You would have to fudge that, whereas you are getting that with the yin and yang, and that's pretty fun and flexible. And you can use it for a lot of different things. You can just have a curvy line as a border, and you could use this wide curvy line or the matched up curvy line, either way. Okay, so have a great weekend, and thank you so much for sharing the time with me. Last week we did the circles on quilts demo on the long arm, and we ended up having to split that into 2 pieces, and I went ahead and I merged them and cleaned up that video, and I will be reprocessing that and putting that out tomorrow on Fabricated Quilts. So if anybody wants to see that, that will be available at 10 o'clock in the morning, and that will be available for you to view. And plus, it's going to be added to my YouTube channel a little bit later. So have a great day, you guys. Happy quilting, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.